Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Calkins. I'm the senior editor with Ball Publishing, and I'm joined in person today by Jeff Back, who is the director of greenhouse operations at Four Star Greenhouses in Michigan. Jeff, how's it going up there?
Good, good. Enjoying a weekend of good weather and enjoying being done with lockdown, at least for the garden center. So
Excellent.
moving.
Gardening is essential. So, Abe Van Wingerden, the president of Metrolina Greenhouses in North Carolina. I bet you guys are crazy busy right now.
Yeah, we've operated across a big area, but man, this last weekend it was good everywhere. So we're excited for May to kick off here, and excited for the rest of the season.
Excellent. That is good to hear. And we are right now we're living in interesting times. And I think that staying safe and healthy is top of mind with people personally, just in their own day-to-day lives and their families, but also for folks like you who are in charge of businesses and worrying about the health and safety of your employees. And I think, for our discussion today, let's talk a little bit about just keeping the workers safe in a greenhouse. In a production greenhouse setting. I think that retailers have probably some more guidelines to follow and a little bit more rules and regulations, whereas production greenhouses, you're kind of trying to figure out as you go. So maybe you guys can start by sharing when your operations began focusing on protocols to reduce the spread of COVID-19 and to people in and around your greenhouse. Abe, I'll just go ahead and start with you. So what's going on at Metrolina when it comes to when you guys decided to start putting some protocols in place?
Yeah. Normally, when you recognize there's an issue, you can always go on the internet and type in this problem, and it'll give you an answer. And we didn't get that one for this one. This was very unique, and I consider it more of a evolution at Metrolina rather than a revolution. We didn't have a magic date. We started and implemented 52 protocols and things of that nature. We really started with a base set of understanding little things we can do. And amazingly, our employees were really good about bringing us ideas and bringing us ways to do things better. Simple things like distancing on a production line, which sounds like, wow, you're going to really hurt your efficiency. We actually found out the reason people stood so close together because they wanted to talk to each other. And when they spread out, the efficiency was a little better, actually. So every little idea like that turned into something we can turn into a protocol for us.
That's great. I think that's interesting that you found a little bit of efficiency gains by spreading people out. So, Jeff, what about you? When did Four Star really start going hard at cleaning up and staying safe on the job?
Yeah, we kind of started early. We're fortunate. I got to give credit to our HR manager, Mike Hewlett. He's got a background in the health field, so he was really abreast of what was going on, and he really went to the CDC guidance and really looked at what we could apply for that. So, a little bit like Abe says, it's easy to get a list of things, but then to apply it to your work is a whole different story. So, it was a process to get it fully implemented, and we're still doing it, of course. But we were fortunate to have Mike that was really on top of it, and so we've been going at it since the very beginning. We wanted to make sure we stayed. We were fortunate to be essential. We're in a state that was really locked down hard, so we felt the pressure on us. We're a grower. Vegetables is not our main thing. We grow enough of them, but we just wanted to make sure that we went above and beyond whatever it took to keep employees safe. So that was definitely our guiding force.
Okay, no, and that makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate you guys for kind of setting the stage for this discussion. So let's. I want to cover a few topics today while we're talking. I want to take a look at cleaning and sanitation protocols that you guys have in place, monitoring the health of your employees, because that's is obviously a big part of this equation. Social distancing in a greenhouse setting, because from everything I've read and heard, it's really the distancing that's going to help keep folks safe through all of this. And then any process changes that you're undertaking to minimize the risk and maximize the health of your entire team. So if that sounds good, I think we can probably jump right into the discussion. So let's start with cleaning and sanitation, because I know that there are probably some specific processes and protocols in place at your operations. And Do you know, I guess offhand, what disinfectants you're using for different focus areas, and then really how often your teams are applying them? And maybe Jeff, why don't we just go ahead and start with you? Just, some of the chemicals or different cleaning processes you guys are undergoing, and where you're really focused on.
Yeah, Bill, for us, we're kind of fortunate, we're our biggest business, we're a young plant supplier. So we kind of had to jump on the sanitation piece quite a bit. I mean, we have isopropyl alcohol. We buy it in by the 55-gallon drum. We do have a lot of, hand disinfectant that we already had here. The other item that we came across was this, I actually got it from Gordon's, this Quat cleaner. It's a really strong disinfectant. We were able to get that kind of before the mad rush. So we were able to get that in. So that's kind of the biggest thing that we're cleaning with. As far as for employees, isopropyl alcohol, we buy it. I think we get it almost close to 100% when we cut it down ourselves. And then also we stock a lot of just straight hand cleaner sanitizer as well. So we were fortunate to be a little bit ahead of the mad rush for disinfectants. That's
sure.
Our big three. The two are for people, and then the Quat cleaner for cleaning areas.
Okay. What are some of the focus areas that you guys are really keeping on top of, from a day-to-day or even, within the day in a greenhouse?
I know for us, we really tried to watch for touch points, and we even went through and kind of came up with a labeling system where we're putting like a yellow dot, just like on microwaves, on everything, just to help people think about it. And then also we have you'll probably get to it, but we have a cleaning crew of between 6 and 8 that are going through, and that's all they do is clean.
Okay. And Abe, what about it at your greenhouses?
Yeah, very similar. I mean, we weren't as lucky. We didn't have, when it hit, cleaning supplies were gone. The one good thing, and I always advise a lot of other greenhouses, hit your commercial providers, because the retail was hit hard. A lot of the commercial providers, because other businesses closed, had supplies longer, and that really helped us. We're able to find that. But we use some really, CDC recommended 3% bleach solution. And I know it sounds real simple, but it worked really well. Every night we spray all of the common break rooms and break areas, all of the people movers. We have 107 electric carts. We have to spray every one of those every night between our facilities. And we have a separate crew that does. I always recommend folks don't assign this to the guys spacing plants and make sure you clean at the end of the day. It'll never happen. Or you'll do it for a week and you won't do it consistently. And this has really become part of a staff that does this on a normal basis. And we'll talk a little bit about what you keep in after this is over, so to speak. And I think a lot of this is sanitation stuff that is become normalized in how we operate every day. And same thing, we talked about high touch surfaces, but we also do it for people's personal tools. We're very serious about them cleaning their phones. It's the thing they touch the most every day is their own phone. A lot of our operations run off people's phones to run our automation. And they a lot of times would share phones, and we didn't even realize it. And then when we got into that became a big win for us to help people understand your own personal tools are just as important to clean as us cleaning the break rooms and bathrooms and high touch surfaces.
No, that's true. And I do agree that some of these are probably going to become just best practices moving forward. So has this required additional people? Like, have you added the cleaning crews, or were these just folks who were cleaning that are now kind of working double duty?
No, we got our cleaning crew. We had a third-party crew already cleaning. They added staff because they had some other facilities they couldn't work at anymore, and because they closed. And so we had doubled up that staff because the people who were doing it couldn't have kept up at the rate we were asking people to clean more often. And we saw little things like seats people sat on, handles of carts, a lot of things you just don't think about day to day that we had to apply. Some of the simple stuff you got right away, but only after some watching do you realize the other things. I'll give an example. We had to eliminate our biometric scanners for clocking in. People put their finger in and their ramp was there, but when 600 people put their same finger in that same thing, there wasn't enough sanitizing wipes to manage that. So we had to go old school and clock in really by hand, and our managers collected that data and then input it on the computer. And even today we're looking at whether it's facial recognition software or something that is a touchless clock-in system as we move into the future.
Okay, Jeff, how about you guys? Did you have to add additional cleaning crew, or how did that work?
Um, we did have some extra staffing that we were able to use, but you know, a lot like what Abe said, broke them off separate. That is all they're focused on is cleaning, and they do a great job. Um, they're very conscious of touch points, and kind of like what Abe said as well. I think they see things that we don't even see. When you really set that as a goal to just clean everything you can think of, you start realizing, you know, I just watched a lady cleaning the knobs on the soil machine, like, oh, you know, just stuff like that you don't think of, you know.
Sure.
So yeah, so keeping them focused on that is great, and very much like what Abe said, you know, probably going to be a way of life, man. I mean, it's a good thing to do, and it really, I think people like to see that happening. It's just a great reassurance when they know that, and I tell you, they're the first people I thank every day when I see them, is just, you know, as they're walking around, and I tell people to just thank them, because, you know, it's an incredibly important job.
That's true. And it's really kind of amazing that you guys have implemented these things so quickly. And you're right. It's the little things that you don't even think about on a day-to-day basis that tend to be some of the most, you know, either the areas of highest risk or the things that are most touched. So, I mean, you talked a little bit about, Jeff, just and Abe, how important these teams are. And I think that it's good to talk about the people, because without all these teams in place, you're not going to have the color and beauty come into the people's lot, you know, especially now when everybody's locked down and trying to beautify their homes. I think that is why we're essential. And it really does come down to the people, like always. So when it comes to the people, I mean, are you guys requiring masks? How does that work? Has everyone got their face covered? Or I guess, what does it look like in your greenhouse today? And maybe Abe, I'll just go ahead and start with you. Are you guys requiring masks, and how does that work?
Yeah, we got one of the employees recommended we provide them. So we gave every employee 2 bandanas 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. Like the first week, someone came up with the idea, and we had the ability to do that, and actually had our logo on it, which was kind of nice. And so we just highly recommended it. And I would say 60 to 70% of our employees now wear that facial covering, especially when they get in close contact with each other. Clearly, someone's sitting in their office, or they're on a call like this and they're by themselves, then we're not highly recommending it. And we're only going to require it if we feel like we don't see enough adaptation in those close contact areas. Or number 2, and I think a lot of greenhouses are going to face this, if our city, county, or state requires it in the workplace, because I don't think we're too far off from that happening out in our retail outlets, and even within cities real near us. Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina requires it in the workplace. So we're not too far away, I think, from that happening. But where you have people equipped with this material already, we have videos running on how to make it into a facial covering, and it stays on better so it's safe, rather than tying it around the back of your head and going down that path right now.
And Jeff, how about you guys? I guess masks, first of all, and secondly, Abe just brought it up, and I think it's a good question, is how are you communicating these, you know, do you have signs up, or how do your employees know that, hey man, put a mask on, we got to stay safe in here?
Yeah, I'll give Abe some props here. So yeah, so we're doing almost the same thing, right on. Just with the bandanas, we, you know, because masks were so scarce, we were able to issue everyone 2 different bandanas that they can use, and, you know, have instructions how to clean them. We do have like an internal video system that we took from Metrolina, and we use it interior, and it's great for training. We love it. And so that's a big piece. We put up all the guidelines on there. You know, it's a great training tool. They're in all the break rooms. So yeah. And as far as, yeah, we're just about the same. We highly encourage everyone to wear them, and it's the exact same thing. If you're working within 6 feet, you better have it on. If there's a grower out by themselves, you know, there's nobody 30 feet around, that's fine. You know, they'll probably pull their bandana down or something. That's not a big deal. But kind of the same thing. We're watching everybody, and if everybody's being smart about it when they're within close distance, then, you know, we won't necessarily require it. But we're definitely strongly encouraging it, and I would say a good high percentage of folks are doing it. And you know, Tom Smith, our owner, he said it starts with management. So whenever we're out on the floor, regardless, masks are on. Setting the example.
Okay, no, and I think it makes sense, and you're right. It's going to start to become more and more required. I think certainly some states are much stronger on that than others, but seems like it's slowing the spread. So I do think I saw that both your operations are monitoring the health of your employees, and I'm wondering what that looks like. A little bit about that process. I don't know, Jeff, if you want to talk a little bit about how you guys are monitoring. I think I've seen some pictures, folks getting checked on their way in, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was something that Tom and Sharon Smith, our owners, the one thing they challenged us all with was they wanted workers to feel safer here than they do anywhere. And that was a big challenge to the management staff. And they were the first ones to suggest if we could find nurses, get in and get some nurses here. Let's start checking temps. Let's do what we can to make people feel comfortable. So, and we'll talk more about this later, I'm sure, but we divided into a couple shifts. And so we have 3 nurses that come in, one for first shift, one for second shift, and then we have a weekend nurse. They come, we check everybody in the morning, we check temps. They alert us if there's anyone that's showing anything, above whatever. I think there's a recommendation of like 100.4 or something like that. And then they also hang around for a couple hours afterwards, just walk around, and they're a resource for people to talk to, just to, add reassurance. They're here if you need them, want to talk to them, how you're feeling, just really, it's been a great thing to have. And I think when our employees see it, they know that we're really going all out to make sure everybody's safe.
And I like that you guys want your employees to feel safer there than anywhere else. I think it's what you want. You want a strong team that feels safe when they're coming into work, especially this time of year when they're so critical to the operation. Abe, what about you guys? Are you taking a look at the health and monitoring on a regular basis?
Yeah, we have a couple of things I'll add on. A lot of the stuff Jeff said, so I won't repeat much of it. But our philosophy is we want you to leave work safer than when you came to work. A lot of people, there are people at home, their family is nervous that they come to work, nervous when they come home, what they brought home with them. And so we're real sensitive to that, realizing in an environment like ours, we have to provide a safe working place. We do a little thing different. We have everybody in our crew leader meetings every morning ask 5 questions. Do you have a fever? We go through the normal CDC 5 questions. And if they answer yes to any one of those questions, or they visibly look like they would answer yes, even if they don't verbally say it, meaning they look like it, our managers have been trained into send those folks to the HR office where they'll go through a temperature screen and a health screen. And if they can't pass those, they're of course sent home till they show 72 hours without symptoms. But I really think you have to get your people trained. None of our people are health experts, and we get that, but a temperature check and some visible signs are really good to help with that. Additionally, we eliminated our attendance policy, which used to assign points if you missed work or if you were out sick. And we've eliminated that during this time because we don't want anybody to feel like they have to come into work to avoid some penalty that might occur in an old system. So, and that's been good. We're here 8 weeks. We haven't had any cases, and we have over 1,400 employees between our 2 farms, and we've been blessed so far in that.
No, I think those are really good points, and you're right. You don't want people to feel like they're forced or that they're scared to admit that they have an illness, or that they're going to get somehow penalized by that. I think that's definitely to be applauded. So social distancing seems to be the method that a lot of folks in general in society are taking, but also within businesses. So how do you create social distance in the common areas in your greenhouses? We're going to talk a little bit later about the specifics of whether it's your production lines or things like that, but in some of the areas that folks congregate, how are you creating some social distance to keep people separated so they're not kind of sitting on top of each other? I don't know, yeah. Jeff, you want to go ahead and
Jeff.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. So for us, it's your break rooms are a big one. So we really limited that number of what we've gone to the point of even marking out where folks are sitting. We took any extra chairs away. And then, the other part was dividing out the teams to where you're not overloading your break rooms with multiple shifts, multiple breaks, and then really limiting that number. Restrooms, We have a limit on how many people can be in the restroom at one time. We have, the marks on the floor where people can line up. Even like our glove stations, because our handling, we have a lot of gloves for our products. You had to back people up from the glove stations, and so at Time Clock, same thing, similar to what Abe is doing. We kind of eliminated Time Clock as much as possible. We're doing a lot of it on iPads. If we do have to clock people in, we'll have one crew leader that'll do it and then hit people's time cards. So they're the only one holding the scanner. We're not doing biometrics, so we kind of have a little different than that. So it's really about limiting those numbers, and just thinking where anybody's, people are going to huddle up at. We moved some of the lockers around. We had some areas where our lockers were that were kind of narrow. We pulled the lockers out. We pulled vending machines out, whatever we could do to, aisleways, or like if somebody stopped in a locker that's near a restroom and somebody has to walk past them, what can we do to funnel traffic and things like that as well. So a lot of marking on the floor, and a lot of, where are people sitting and the numbers in the break rooms. That's the big congregation areas for sure.
Well, you pointed out vending machines and time clocks where people tend to line up and kind of stand really close to each other, waiting to get in, especially when time is limited. I think that those are just some of the areas to just be conscious and aware of. How about at Metrolina, Abe? What are you guys doing to keep people spread apart?
Yeah, like Jeff said, a lot of similar things. One of the things we also made sure our third-party providers knew all of our rules. The lunch truck, there are different people who come in that don't understand your rules, and then when they violate them, it makes it harder to enforce it in other areas, because the lunch truck gets a big line real quick. But the lunch truck is very happy now because we do 3 staggered lunches, so his line's not that long at all now. He can get a lot more business throughputed. We've also limited meetings to 10 people or less. Used to be bring 20, 30, 40 people together. We've limited that, used more Microsoft Teams, Zoom meetings, but also even within the greenhouse, if we have to have people congregate, we make sure they stand apart. And then the other one that Jeff didn't mention that might be different at ours is our HR offices get a lot of traffic. So we put a plexiglass shield in front of our HR office. We put markings on the floor. We were hiring right when this happened. This was at the pinnacle of hiring for greenhouses. And when you have 50 people lined up to get a job and you have to distance them, you have to create a lot more space for that. And that was sort of new for us. It only hit us the day we had the first job fair, and there was 100 people lined up back to back to line up for a job. So we had to learn, even under our own employees, it really came down to visitors managing that too.
Wow. Those are really interesting things to think about, especially with that kind of timing. So Jeff, you mentioned it earlier, the touch points. Can you expand on that just a little bit? Some of the different touch points that you've seen within the operation that, again, people just might not think of as being really super hands-on.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. Like the water fountains, we converted all the water fountains to either a pedal or a touch sensor. All the sinks, every sink has been converted over to, the kitchen sinks, everything like that has been converted over to touchless. And, we look at it like those are things that we want going forward. So there's no downside to doing that now. We look at it and go, man, wish we'd have done it before, So those are the kind of touch points. And like I said, if there's a chance that our cleaning crew doesn't get to something, we've literally gone through and just put like yellow adhesive dots on everything. It's just this little thought, when somebody touches something, are they cleaning their hands? What are they doing? How are they thinking about it? Personal responsibility, reminding them of that. And then again, with the cleaning crews. So yeah, it's as much as we can convert to touchless, we're doing it. And then marking what's not and making sure people are thinking about it.
I like that idea of a yellow dot, just as a quick reminder, like a visual cue that hey, clean up. I've heard some folks are just keeping doors propped open, because that's a traffic flow thing, but it's also something you just don't realize how many things you touch. Or I think it was Jeff at 4-Star, you guys taking the trash can lids off. Those are fairly simple things to do that can probably reduce quite a bit of risk. So, and this really is new and unprecedented. And you look around and see, folks are kind of even just out on a general basis, confused about what to do. How are your teams responding? How are they holding up? Are they adopting these practices? Are they resistant? I guess, how's it going when you talk to some of the folks, out there in the greenhouse? Abe, why don't you go ahead and address that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, it's funny when we first did the facial coverings, I thought, oh, nobody's going to wear these. And the first 10 people who do that, everybody's going to shun them and say, what's wrong with you? And then what actually happened, it happened quicker than I expected. And now when you don't wear a facial covering, you're the one who's looked at funny. And so you get some natural adaptation that happens over time by people. And people bring ideas. One person brought us an idea of you usually have a trash can right at the bathroom before you leave. But if we ask people to use a paper towel to open the door, because we haven't got a touchless system yet, we need a trash can on the outside the bathroom. Sounds like a really little thing, but it keeps messes down and handles those type of things. We have roll-up doors throughout our facility that they're touchless, but we've never thought about that in other areas where we have this technology, we utilize it with scanner or eye scanners and what have you, and we don't put it in our common areas. And so we're going back and relooking at a lot of things that our employees bring us as ideas and how to do it better. One thing we do, we send out a weekly note of what we've done this week. It's almost like this week in COVID at Metrolina, and it really says, wow, every week something new is happening here. And so we do have some general reminders about washing your hands, but we try to message to everybody that the ideas aren't done. This is a longer term piece, and we have to have new ideas every week, and then we message those ideas out to everybody so they implement them better.
It's cool, kind of cast that net and capture those ideas, because on a day-to-day basis, everybody's going to think of different things that they can do to help out with the health and safety. How about at 4-Star? How are folks reacting to these changes?
Yeah, just to echo Abe, it's just people are chipping in, which is great. They're looking out, and they're thinking of things that need to be done. I think everybody's been so appreciative of all the efforts. I think that goes a long way, and people, it's a great way to show you care about your employees, everything we're doing to go above and beyond. And, they have chipped in, and like I said, I think we had 21 people out when we first started. A lot of those were folks that just weren't comfortable coming in, and we weren't, we're not gonna call them out for that, because we're kind of like, what Metrolina is doing. We're not holding this attendance policy over your head. If you're not feeling good, or if you're not comfortable, don't come in. And it's amazing, since we started doing everything that we have, we're down to like 3 people that are out, and I think 2 of them are sick. And and it's amazing. People would come in and see, like I would be with the nurse first thing in the morning, just because I want to be the first face they see, just to say, hey, they're thankful. We gotten so many thank yous, and I think that goes a long ways. And I think people are grateful, and makes them just work that much harder. And then they also make suggestions.
That's good. And people do appreciate it when their employers taking care of them and showing leadership. And, I've got to believe that feeling safe at work is on the minds of just about everybody who's going into a facility to work these days. So we talked a little bit about the specifics that greenhouses need to consider. Let's go into a little bit more detail, just very kind of production greenhouse specific, on the movement of people and plants, especially in areas, kind of starting at the beginning of the process, like receiving, and then you've got planting, picking, shipping, all areas where you could probably make changes to minimize risk, but areas that just about every greenhouse has, and areas that everyone needs to be considering. Have you altered, I guess, tasks and duties to reduce contact or exposure, especially in these areas that are super busy in the spring? I don't know, Abe, if you wanna tackle that. I'm kind of leaving it open-ended, because I don't know every single step in the process, but I gotta believe that there's a lot of shared spaces when it comes to moving plants throughout a greenhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. From the production side, it's actually a little easier, we found. When you have a production line, you can physically spread people out, and you kind of know the space you're confined in, and you can really measure it out. It's actually more difficult in the greenhouse, in the shipping portion of it, where you don't have this sort of standardized way of doing work. And so what we've told people, if you're a crew of 6 and you're supposed to get up 50 carts or 60 carts, rather than all 6 of you working in those 60 carts, now have one person do 10 carts, and each person does 10 carts. We've actually found we can measure people on efficiency a little easier that way when each person has their individual job to do. So rather than taking a tray off the ground, handing it to another person, that person hands it to a person to put it on the cart. The person now grabs the tray, puts it on the cart themselves. And I know it sounds real simple, but we were amazed how many multiple handoffs we had created in our processes. And it's just a lot of touch points you can eliminate and go back to almost, I call it the old school way of everybody kind of doing their own cart. And that's worked out pretty well for us. Again, on the production lines, like I told earlier, spreading people out was actually a good thing because they were able to focus on their job and the piece they had. But there's only so far you can go. And so you learn a lot about alternating on the sides of belts and things of that nature, because it's not that side-to-side distance. What the CDC talks about is that face-to-face distance and the ability to emit, liquids and things of that nature too close together. And so we've done a lot of things to spread those folks out and change the way people do work.
Have there been any places that you're just really challenged with the spacing or with, disrupting your production process? Are there any real pinch points that you're still challenged with, or have you figured most of them out?
I think, I'll go back to the earlier piece. Some of the hardest parts are like at our HR office and gathering points. It's not really been in the production part of it. There's enough room there typically to sort people out, or you slow lines down and you just work staggered shifts. So if we produce for 12 hours, we might produce for 16 with 2 groups of 8 for 8 hours rather than a group of 16. So that's really the way we do. And when we finally run out of ideas, then what we've learned from our retail partners is the plexiglass can be your friend. And you put it in those places where you just can't figure out social distance. And it's very cumbersome at first. And then people adapt so quick and they figure it out and it works. So.
And how about at Forestar, Jeff, some of these structural changes, whether it's the process flow or transportation of plants, the organization of the assembly line type areas? I know I've seen pictures of your planting lines and some of what you guys are doing to divide people up. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing to minimize the risk in areas that have got to be just cranking right now?
Yeah, gonna echo Abe again on this one. Just multiple shifts, acknowledging in some degree that if we did it with 16 people in 8 hours, it may take, we may divide that up and it may be a few more hours, try to keep our shifts strong, but yet, we may not have the experience on the second shift. But we're marking off spots on the floor. We're trying to distance people out. Where we couldn't, which is one particular line you had the picture of, we thought, well, let's try some barriers here because we need to put more people on that line than we've really got space for. So can we make them feel comfortable? Can we put these barriers up? We checked with them first too. We didn't want it to be something that inhibited what they do, whether it was to make eye contact, to be able to verbally communicate with each other. And it wasn't a big deal. They actually, again, they appreciated it. Plant handling's a big one. One of the small things that we had was with our carts. We have the Dutch style carts, the thinner carts. And what would happen is if you had a train of them, people were pulling them by hand. You usually have 2 people in front standing side by side, walking down the corridor with it. It's like, hey, can't do that anymore. So, it maybe not our best practice from safety standpoint, but now we'll have somebody pushing from behind and one person guiding in the front. They got to be careful doing that. But, it's just something you don't think about because they're standing side by side, walking with the carts. So that's a big one. Trucks, loading trucks, making sure, you don't have multiple people in the back of a truck. Just watching that. I agree with Abe. I think production wasn't too bad. We could space people out on the lines. It didn't work too bad. We have a lot of the individual planting stations, the sticking stations, where we could just shut down every other one and space people out naturally. So that was the easy part. The greenhouse was a work in progress. And I can say one thing that helped us is we have cameras everywhere. And so even the owner would be calling me at night saying, hey, might want to check on these folks or give the supervisor a call, So I was prepared for that. It was going to happen, but that's okay. That means he's watching. So that helped a bunch. So definitely the greenhouse was the trickier of the two. I don't think people thought about it as much. So yeah, we worked on that quite a bit.
Okay. No, and yeah, I think you're right. I think everybody's sort of production space is different, but really taking that step back and objectively looking at wherever you can make improvements, and then putting them in place and sharing. One thing you said, Jeff, that I think is really important is sharing why. Asking for the input of the folks working in that area to make sure that something that makes a lot of sense to you might really either inhibit how they're going to do their job or make it a lot less enjoyable, and you really want to avoid those things as much as possible, especially with all the other stress going on in everybody's lives. I guess before we wrap up today, let's talk a little bit about the future. You both mentioned that there are protocols that you've put in place that, as you sit back and think about them, they make a lot of sense for just how to operate your business. And assuming that we're all going to continue to be, much more aware of the spread of disease and what we can do in areas that have close contact. And, certainly, every year we have seasons where disease is spread, and how do we minimize sickness during, we've learned a lot on how to minimize the transmission of diseases. What does all this mean, I guess, looking forward? Do you see some of these changes becoming long-term best practices and guidelines? And Abe, I'll go ahead and start with you. I'm definitely interested in how you both feel about this moving forward.
Yeah, I think it goes on a couple levels. I think it's important as you implement any changes, you're measuring the impacts. A lot of people don't do that. They just run to the CDC website and do the things they're told, and then they're just like, I hope this is over soon. And I think we all have to realize it's not going to be over soon, and thus you need to measure any change you make to see the efficiency impact, much like you would with any machinery you put in or any technology upgrade. And so we found in some places slowing down is actually making us better because the throughput is more accurate. So if we speed up the line and we only get 96% of them right, we slow the line down because we had to spread people out. We found out we're at 99% yield rate. We might be better in the long run doing that. Staggering breaks and lunches. We found out you don't have to buy as many microwaves. Your bathroom doesn't have to be as big. There are costs that you don't think about when you have this sort of old school mentality of everybody has to go to break and lunch at the same time. And in reality, the way work flows, you can stagger breaks and you can create some efficiencies because you get people out of the way for certain work that has to get done by a department in an area where another department can be at lunch or break. So really some efficiency standards is one. Number two, cleanliness. Clearly there's parts of this that are obvious. Cleaning high touch surfaces is logical, and none of us thought about it till recently, especially in what I call the finished production greenhouses. To do better, I think, in the young plant greenhouses, and we have to implement some of those standards in our finished production greenhouses because it's just people, the expectation is going to be there from people, and attracting employees to work at your facility, they're going to look at your cleanliness and sanitation standards. It's a thing now, and we have to be ready for it.
Very, very good point. And you're right. Moving forward, that is going to be probably a question people are going to ask in interviews. They're really going to be conscious of that. And anything that, when you have an answer, they're going to feel much more confident. How about you, Jeff? What do you think this means looking forward in the future at 4-Star?
Yeah, we've talked about it at length that, there's really nothing that we've done now that we've added that we would turn back from, in terms of healthiness, happiness. I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. And, basically just keeping people healthy, I mean, forcing people to think more about touching surfaces, washing their hands, man, if that affects attendance rates, if that, our weather up here in Michigan, we definitely have a big cold and flu season. So, I mean, if we could keep that going, and keep people here and, let them know again that we're watching out for them, which we want to keep everybody healthy and happy. That goes a long way. And, some of the things that we made touchless, we should have done it before. It just really helps us. And, we are known for our cleanliness. It's part of where we're at in the industry. And, to echo what Abe's saying, everybody's stepping up their game. And so that's what we get seen as. That's what we're kind of known for. So there's nothing that we're going to turn back from that I can see. And of course, we don't know what the future holds yet. So we're going to just keep tackling it. And I agree with Abe. We've gained some efficiencies. We've thought through some things about, hey, maybe have less people on a break. We don't need to have 453 microwaves. We can, get people through, and they can get through quicker and not be upset that we're trying to get them through in a half an hour and nobody can get to the microwave, and just things like that we hadn't thought of, and how it keeps us efficient with running machines and, using our people a little more wisely just by taking more breaks and maybe even working multiple shifts, But yeah, we'll see where it goes. But yeah, so far, I don't see anything we're turning back from, for sure.
Okay. I really appreciate it. And I thank you guys so much for spending this time. I think that, your business has reacted very quickly to this. It's a testament to your industry leadership, but it's also really a testament to caring about your employees and their health and well-being. I guess, do you guys have any final thoughts before we close? Abe, you had mentioned a little bit about your folks out in the field working at retail, and some of it's tough in the throes of spring probably to keep some distance out at retail when you're merchandising. I don't know if you want to share that story real quick. I thought that was kind of an interesting one.
Oh, no, I just tell people, for as much as the work we have to do in our facility, the hardest places are folks out in the stores, because the employees at the store follow all the standards. Our merchandisers do, but consumers have forgot to follow those standards when it's 70 degrees outside and they need a tray of petunias. And so so it's just really work to wear social distancing pins and things of that nature, but consumers will still tap our teams on the shoulder, and just, you have to keep communicating with folks. One of the things I would tell anybody who might be watching this is, if you haven't started yet, you didn't miss the boat. You can start tomorrow. You can take anything you heard on this call and implement it tomorrow. It is not too late. This is not going away, and it's just going to have to be the way we do business. And then you have to communicate with your teams and tell them you're doing it, because you have to lead by example. Jeff talked about that earlier. If the management and the ownership aren't doing it, there's no way you can expect your teams to do it.
That's great. Anything to add, Jeff? Or
Abe did really good on that. I think in a lot of ways we see that our employees were waiting for us. They're looking forward to us taking care of them, and we want to do the best we can. We're in a great industry. I got to say, even being in a state that's locked down, I'm amazed at how things have turned around. We're incredibly blessed to work in an industry that has been fairly, a recession proof, and now we're proving to be pandemic proof. And so the least we can do is give back and take care of our employees, and and take care of some of the professionals out there as well. And we're trying to do some things to be, conscious in our community as well. So definitely, we're thankful for everything that we're doing, and want to keep passing that down.
It's excellent. So again, thank you guys so much for your time. And to everyone listening and watching, stay safe out there. On behalf of Ball and Ball Publishing, Bill Calkins, I'm reminding you that spring is not canceled. Gardening is essential, and take care out there.